Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week, we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month. There's also a free trial option. I'm posting my regular recruiting content there online, including content I'll talk about on this podcast. That link will also be in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. I'm also appearing on the Horns Down podcast and YouTube channel with my podcast compatriot Jason Watkins and Chris Griffin, where we're discussing OU season and off-season stuff. So you can also catch me there. You can subscribe to that on YouTube. Also, the Sooners 360 YouTube channel always has the podcasts in a different format if you prefer YouTube. So please subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. So this is episode 113, High School Recruiting Restarts. And as promised, I've given you two podcasts in a row. Episode 112 went out last night, and that was all the portal information. Tonight, it's all back to high school recruiting. So we're going to kind of catch you guys up on what's been going on and talk about things that are coming up and talk about new offers, et cetera, and things like that. So as always, we will start with the commit news. OU, while we've been on our little holiday hiatus, did receive a kind of commitment out of nowhere from Will Conroy, 6'4", 285-pound center, offensive guard from the Cleveland, Ohio area. He played for a really good Cleveland high school, very competitive program. And his coach was a former Ohio State center who also had a very good NFL career. His name is Charles Bentley. He was, I believe, an all-pro center for the New Orleans Saints. And I said used to play for because actually Will has gone ahead and transferred to IMG. He's already in Florida as we speak. Posted a quick Twitter video of him working out at IMG in Bradenton, Florida. So Will is going to raise his level of game to get better. He's a top 200, top 250 type player, probably a center. Could be an offensive guard, but he's got a very lean frame. His junior film I really like his junior film. He's an aggressive player, really hitting guys, really blocking well, does a good job. And in the in the Twitter highlights that he posted, it showed him practicing snapping the ball. So I think he could easily be 6'4", 310 pounds. That's kind of the frame he kind of has to be a big guy like that. So looks like OU may have their center for the 2026 recruiting class, which would be good. Obviously OU got Owen Holland back, who's just a monster. So, but it's always nice to get a center in every class because as we learned this last fall of 24, you can never have enough centers. Unfortunately, we got to talk decommit news. Now, while we were off, OU lost Jonathan Hatton, the running back from San Antonio. He decommitted from OU, which was not a big surprise. There have been rumors about that. But I got to say, I was a little taken back by the decommit from 2027 defensive end and OU's only 2027 commit, Zane Rowe. He went ahead and decommitted. It looks like he wants to take some more visits. A&M and Texas are obviously working him hard and obviously doing a negative recruiting spiel on the Sooners with their pretty average to bad year in the SEC, depending upon how you want to view it. So I'm not really that worried about this. He's done some interviews where he says he's still considering OU. He just wants to take visits, and he can't be committed to OU and take visits. Even Miguel Chavis posted something on Twitter talking about, hey, if underclassmen decommit, fans shouldn't get all bent out of shape. Kids have got to go through their journey to find their schools. So it does make me wonder if OU will be a little more circumspect about taking commitments from guys before maybe late fall of their junior years, because obviously Zane committed way back, and so did Hatton. They committed sort of 2 years early. And maybe OU will say it's nice, but why don't you we're happy to be your leader. You've got a ship with us. Don't worry about it, but just hold off until you've had a chance to take a couple more visits. So I think OU needs to think about that if they want to hold on to this no commitment, no visit sort of stance. So I think there's something in play there. But I think if OU has a really good year and Brent Venables is the defensive coordinator, is the OU head coach in January of 2026, I think OU will be in great shape to get back in with Zane Rowe, who I have a very high opinion of. I think he's a top 50, top 75 kind of talent in the country. He had a really good sophomore year, very productive. So it's a loss, but I think it's one that OU, with a good season, can counter. And if OU has a bad season, we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff in recruiting and all kinds of stuff head coach wise. So I just don't think it's anything to worry about. The next big sort of news item that's out there is the Under Armour game. Unfortunately, ended up with the rescheduling of the Sugar Bowl. Ended up basically being on the same time as the UGA Notre Dame game. So while I did not watch it live, I did catch a replay of it. The putting juniors in the game, and a lot of guys are backing out of all-star games because they're enrolling early or don't want to play. And if they don't want to play, the games are obviously kind of inviting new guys. So the talent level on the Under Armour game has dropped. I'll be interested to see if the same thing happens with the Navy All-American game, which is coming up. But I felt like there were a lot of good juniors, but the senior level elite talent wasn't quite there. Even with that, there was still a lot of elite guys. But Michael Fasusi, the OU offensive tackle verbal, who measured in around 6'5", 305 pounds, looking lean, and apparently just looked absolutely elite. He won the MVP for the whole week and the game, and combining the practices and gameplay. He was the number one guy with all the guys that were there. That's skill position, defensive line, everybody. And it's hard for an offensive lineman really to be, that so much of this is framed against the way offensive line works, especially the game. You've got elite D lines, and then they're playing makeshift offensive lines who never played together. So for Michael to be that good, and a lot of the drills are weighted towards defensive line, let's just put it that way. So for Michael to be that consistent, win almost every drill, be that consistent in the game, played left tackle, played right tackle, didn't matter, looked fantastic. It sets Michael up for, on a couple of the services, Michael is still in he's not a top 10 player. He is on one or two, but the other two other services don't have him that high. I think with this performance in Orlando, when they do their final rankings after the 2 All-Star games, I think there's a good chance that Michael Fasusi is like a consensus top 10 player in the nation, which would make him the highest ranked offensive lineman OU's ever recruited by a, inside that frame by a wide margin. I think, Bray Walker was like 35 in the country or something like that would be the last name close to that. So Michael was the only 2026 signee at the game. But there were a couple of, there's some other action and other names coming out of the week in Orlando to talk about. The first one is KJ Ford, a name I've talked about in this podcast a number of times. If you're on the Patreon, I've been talking about KJ Ford quite a bit. He's the Duncanville defensive end. He's around 6'4", 230, really good film. And he had a great week in Orlando. Looked great. So that was a good sign. Jake Krull, the rush end, who's been in Norman several times last year. KJ Ford was in Norman like 5 times last year in 24. So OU has some momentum there. Obviously, everyone's coming after him, though. He looks like a top 100 player. Jake Krull is ranked right now in the composite top 50 territory. He's an edge rusher, outside linebacker. He's 6'3", 230. He's from the Orlando area originally. Now he's moved to IMG. And there's ex Twitter videos of him pass rushing against monstrous offensive line guys because he looks a little small, and he's just giving them. I mean, they're having a nightmare trying to block him because of his speed, his relative power for his size, and his variety of pass rushing moves. So Jake Krull looked great. OU and Miguel Chavis seemed firmly in that battle. So two of the younger defensive ends at the game that had really good weeks, both really still heavily connected with OU. Probably OU's number one, number two targets at defensive end. Although we'll talk about some more defensive ends coming up. It also looks like if Michael Fasusi was the best offensive lineman there, probably the second one was junior offensive tackle. I'm going to try and not butcher this name too bad. Emmanuel Iheanacho. He's 6'7", 340. He might be the best player in the nation. He's from Maryland. And he was talking up visiting OU, that OU's offensive line tradition meant something to him, and that OU could get a visit this spring. He obviously has Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, everybody after him. But he's talking, visiting OU, which is a start in the right direction. I'm not sure OU will be a final player here. But if you were going to spend Michael Fasusi, David Stone type NIL dollars, Emmanuel Ahencho would be there. I did my third pronunciation of his name. Would be where I would strongly consider. I mean, he looks in good shape at 6'7", 340. Would be somewhere I would consider spending and dropping a significant NIL package for. Then also there's a safety from Florida named Caden Hall, 6'3", 200 pounds, from the Florida area. He's like a composite 150 right now. On3 has him as one of the top 30 players in the nation. His film's really good. He's got the size, frame, range that you would like from a safety. And Brandon Hall is starting to get a name in recruiting for safeties. He mentioned Brandon in an interview I saw with 247. He mentioned Brandon Hall by name. He mentioned Billy Bowman by name. So if Billy gets drafted, I think there's a good chance. Robert Spears Jennings obviously is coming back for his senior year. I think there's a good chance Robert Spears Jennings will get drafted. Good possibility Peyton Bowen, with 2 years now to kind of take over and be the guy at safety after Billy has left, could also very much be an NFL prospect if his potential starts hitting production on the field. So starting to see Brandon Hall getting the attention and he deserves at safety. So that was really the Under Armour game. The game itself, not that interesting. Ohio State running back made a big play. It was badly attended in Orlando. Obviously, head to head with the college football playoff not helping. Not that it's ever very well attended, because they kind of do it in the middle of the week. It's always kind of a little weird. So, but that's it for the Under Armour game. Now, following recruiting for 20 years, the San Antonio game was always the Army All-American game. And it was that when Adrian Peterson played there. It was there when DeMarco Murray played. It was the Army game when Joe Mixon verbaled. But a little after Joe Mixon, like in 2018, 2019, the Army stopped sponsoring this game. And it became just the All-American game on NBC. Not very catchy. But they now have a new sponsor, which is the Navy. So they've just switched branches of the military. The old Army game is now the new Navy game. And that won't be confusing or anything. But OU does have a couple of verbals there. And there's some names of note that are there. They also are letting juniors play. So there's a couple of junior names to talk about. So the two verbals are Ryan Foji, the other all-star tackle OU got, and Tristan Haynes, the wildly talented cornerback from Carl Albert that OU signed. Now, Foji weighed in measured at 6'5", 295 pounds. So good, like Fasusi, good height and weight to get to Norman, to, get ready for spring, get ready to maybe help in the fall. And Foji is making the list of top performers from practice. He looks really good, and some of the Twitter videos showed. There's a defensive end, his last name's Burgess, who's good at Notre Dame, who's been dominating everybody. And it looked like Foji was the only guy really giving him any competition in one-on-one, defensive end versus tackle drills. Foji was the only guy with the punch, athleticism to really keep up with him. He was kind of ragdolling everybody else. So Ryan's had a good week. Tristan Haynes, he's 6'2", he's probably around 175 pounds right now. So he needs to put on some weight to probably be to help to be a contributor to OU this fall. And it might take him a little bit because, the Carl Albert guys played offense and defense, dominated so many games. So Tristan might take a little while to get going at cornerback, but he has an elite frame and elite athleticism. And he just hasn't been showing up on any of the top 10 lists. A guy that has been showing up in some videos that looks great is a name, 26 name you've heard me talk about. I've called him the best offensive tackle that I think OU has a realistic shot at. And that's Felix Ojo from the Mansfield area in the sort of greater Dallas Metroplex. And he's, every bit 6'7", 275, 280, lean frame, just really athletic, has been doing a great job pass blocking. Really looks like he's a top 50 guy. Well, I think he's top 100 right now, but I think top 50, top even 5-star, top 25 is the ceiling for Felix. It's going to be he's been to Norman a number of times, camped at OU. OU was one of the first schools to offer him, but obviously everybody wants tackles. Texas didn't get one of the top tackles this year from the state of Texas. So I think this is an OU Texas battle, depending upon who else gets involved, and we'll see where it goes. But he's definitely looked really good. The other guy is a name I've mentioned right after OU offered him, and that's Davion Gross, the wide receiver running back from Frisco Lone Star, where Marvin Mims is from, where Ryder Mix, the OU Verbal, is from, and where OU has at least one other target in safety Jordan Deck. And Gross has looked really good, and he's in the drills and all the stuff posted on Twitter. He's looked really good. In an interview I saw on 247, he's talking about how he's playing running back he's like an all-purpose, do everything kind of running back, sort of in the Cordell Patterson mode, if you could, as a comp in terms of wide receiver, running back. But in college, he wants to be a wide receiver. And I think OU would be happy for him to do that. And he's 6'2", 190, probably could be 6'2", 200, and just an awesome looking physical athlete on the hoof. So that's the Navy game. It's on Saturday. So the next recruit, I'll watch that game and give you guys a little more feedback on that on the next recruiting podcast that we do. So coaches can now be on the road. OU's done with their bowl game. They can be on the road. They can be making offers and doing stuff. So OU has guys out on the road. Ben Arbuckle was out in California. DeMarco Murray was in the Tulsa area at Jenks visiting 26 running back Caden Jones. With the loss of Jonathan Hatton, Caden Jones, OU needs to land Caden Jones. Let's just put it that way. Jay Valai was in Garland, going to Centennial High School, spending time probably looking in on as much as the rules allow him to on 2027 elite cornerback Montre Jackson. Jackson's been to OU several times. OU's really high on him, and he has the kind of elite cornerback frame that you really want. Miguel Chavis was in Alabama visiting a new offer. We'll get to that name in just a second. But as you can see, the OU coaches are around and about. They're doing stuff. This is, even with missing a linebacker coach, OU is still out there recruiting, and they're making offers, even making linebacker offers. So we'll get to all that right now as we discuss the new offers OU has made for 2026 and 2027. So OU made 4 recent offers, although one of them I think is kind of a reoffer, and I'm not sure how interesting it is, and we'll get to that in a second. But they've made 6 new offers for 2027. So I expect more 2027 action than action for 2026. But OU is discovering film for guys for 2026 that they like. So that process is still coming together as junior film is getting posted, and they're having names pop up that they were maybe tracking, and now that they have the complete senior, the senior highlight reel, they're now digging deeper into film of guys and finding guys they should offer. So the first one of the first guys was Donovan Webb. He's a safety out of Frisco, Texas. Plays at Panther High School, Panther Creek, I think it is. He's 6 foot, 180 pounds. Looks really good in film. Good coverage skills, but very physical. One, not afraid to come up and run support. Omarion Robinson, if you want a quickie, most recent comp, that sort of works. OU also re-offered Lamar Brown, the big borderline 5-star offensive tackle, offensive guard from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He's 6'5", 280. He's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Do I really need to say why this offer probably isn't going anywhere? I don't think so. He's got LSU. Then OU offered a guy I just absolutely had not heard of, and his name is Camharian Johnson. He's from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Don't know where that is. And he's 6'5", 260. That's what he's listed at on his Huddle profile. And Miguel Chavis just went to go visit him. So first off, he's really 6'5", 250 easy. See him standing next to Miguel Chavis, who at the combine measured 6'5", 250 something, 260 something. So we know Miguel Chavis is a big dude. And this guy's every bit as big as Miguel. His film's really good. It's very active, big defensive end. Could he move inside? Possibly. But he looks really good, long wingspan, explosive off the edge. And he would be a big defensive end to consider, which OU doesn't have a lot of big defensive ends. Prior to this, they were a little short in the big defensive end market. I think he's probably unranked right now, but that's not going to last. Everyone's going to start offering him. His film is that good. Then today, OU offered Keshawn Stansel, another defensive end from North Carolina. He's 6'3", 270, according to his profile. He's claiming a 4.6 40 time, which is just flying for a guy that big. I'll give him props. His first highlight on his soft junior year highlight reel is an awesome play. He blows up a play completely, just flying in. So it's a great highlight. And his highlights do show, I'm not sure he runs a 4.6, but he's a fast, explosive, powerful defensive end off the edge. So he looks like someone to track. Miguel and Todd Bates have contacts in North Carolina from the Clemson days. So he's a name to track and see if anything really happens there. So that's the 4 2026 names. Let's move to 2027. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of the names I'm about to mention are from California, and Arbuckle was recently out in Cali. So the first guy OU offered is Isaiah Lelu. He's a 6'1", 205-pound linebacker from Anaheim Servite, which is a powerhouse in California high school football. His film's pretty good. Looks good. He's a Mike linebacker, so he's a smaller. Needs to put weight on his frame, but he's a 2027 kid. I just watched his sophomore film. I mean, he could be 6'1", 230 by the time he enrolls at a college anywhere in 2 years. So don't focus on that, but he's very physical, Does a good job stopping the run, good job in space, does a good job reading what's going on, getting to the ball carrier. Then we have from Orange Lutheran High School in California. Again, another powerhouse. Usually has players left and right. We have Lucas Roa. He's an offensive guard. Offensive tackle. He was playing, I think, mostly left tackle. Looked good. Good pass rush, good run blocking. Got a lot to work with. Again, it's sophomore film, so you have to temper things a little bit, but looks really good. And then OU offered up Mater Day, again, another California powerhouse, where OU you thought may have ruffled some feathers with pulling Harris, the wide receiver, his offer at the last minute, but Arbuckle went to Mater Day. He was there, and he offered Lex Melangi, who's apparently Tongan, based upon the flag on his Twitter X profile of Tongan descent. And he's huge. He's 6'4", 340. He says tackle. He's probably a guard in college. Probably needs to drop some weight and kind of do a little bit of that reconditioning, drop some bad weight, add some better weight back. But for a sophomore, again, he moves really well. He's very physical, very powerful. He's got lots of offers, and I think that's only going to continue. Then OU offered today a linebacker from the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania. His name's Brandon Lockley. He's 6'2", 220. Seems like he's more of an outside linebacker. Sort of a will. I think he fits the will role really well. Very athletic, pass rushing. Just, you can see why OU offered him. And then OU offered John Meredith, who's a cornerback from Euless Trinity. Obviously, OU's recruiting Toa Katoa from Euless Trinity. So they're going back to Euless Trinity with another offer. He looks good. He's got long frame, very athletic. Lot to work with there as a sophomore kid. And then OU offered a running back, Rayshawn Duncan from Bedford, Ohio. He's a smaller guy. He's 5'8", 190. Just tall. He's not tall, but he looks really good. Very, very, a lot of agility, a lot of speed, making good cuts. He looks good for a sophomore running back. So that's the new offers that OU's made. We're going to continue to have this cycle go through as names appear, more names appear, and OU offers more, especially for 2027, now that they've got more sophomore film. So keep an eye out for that. We'll also start seeing more 2028 offers now that OU's got freshman varsity film to look at. It's recruiting's earlier and earlier. So OU will make more 2028 offers. They just will. It just seems kind of silly to say, but it's happening. Some other things that have been flying around, just, around the recruiting sphere with, some kids being interviewed and names being mentioned and stuff, is there's some more names flashing on the defensive line for 2026. I already mentioned the 2 defensive ends they just offered. And obviously Miguel Chavis was just in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, making sure that Camharian Johnson knows he's a big-time target for OU. Wasn't just an offer out there just because, well, this guy's really good, we need to offer him just to be consistent. They were in Alabama talking to him. So there's a defensive tackle they offered in the late fall. I mentioned it on a podcast, but didn't really think too much of it. I've seen his junior film now. His name's Tavion Branch. He's from Pennsylvania. He's 6'5", 280, 290, and his film's awesome. It's really good. I'm not sure where the connections are in terms of being able to get him on campus for OU, or if there's a coaching connection, but I know why they offered him, and if he's interested in OU should definitely pursue it. Then Luke, I want to say Waffle, but apparently it's like Waffley, I think, or Wafley. OU's offered him way back. OU's after his brother. He's from Hunt Academy. He's 6'6", 245. OU's heavily involved with his brother Owen, who's left Michigan. So I think if OU were to pick up Owen in the transfer portal, which I think they have a 50-50 chance at, he's either going to stay. I think he's either going to stay at home and go to Rutgers, maybe Penn State, or he's going to follow Todd Bates, follow what he wanted to do out of high school and go play for Todd Bates. So if OU gets Owen Waffley, then I think they're in a great position to get Luke. And Luke is a top 100 defensive end. I just rewatched his high school junior film. He's 6'6", 245. He's this lanky, hulking, aggressive presence off the edge, powerful, long wingspan, explosive. Just, would be I think he looks better than his brother, to be honest, just because of his longer frame. Just gives him so much more capability. And his brother's high school film is really good, too. That is an interesting name from Virginia. His name is Valdin Sone, and he's 6'5", 300 pounds. Now, he's originally from Cameroon, I believe, and then emigrated to Sweden, was part of NFL Europe at Sweden. I think I'll have to follow up with Daniel Akinkimi and see if he knows Valdin or know anything about him. But obviously, OU's had some success with Daniel Akinkimi with NFL Europe guys. So OU's going to, pursue him. He would be sort of I think he could, his athleticism, he's raw, obviously, but his athleticism, his frame, his ceiling's off the charts. And there's another guy in Alabama, in Birmingham, who decommitted from Alabama, has some OU adjacent connections with Todd Bates. His name's Vodney Cleveland. He's a defensive tackle nose guard, 6'4", 305 pounds already. He'll be like 320, 325 by the time he enrolls anywhere. And I think OU has maybe a better shot at him than I anticipated. So that's 6 brand new or newish, 3 defensive ends, 3 defensive tackles names I think could be a factor in this recruiting cycle, because I think OU is going to want to sign 3 guys I think it's going to be a big D-line class like 2024. It's a much better class overall. OU has Taj Overton in state. There's more players in Texas to recruit. And OU has made great strides with both Tank Carrington in Vegas and Deuce Geralds from Georgia already. So I think it's and they had some, they had some guys come to their summer camp. T.I., the big nose guard from Colorado I mentioned before. T.I.'s last name is Case. So I think it's a much better defensive line class, better numbers, better play, just deeper overall. So I think OU has a chance to sign a big class and have a chance to build some players. And we know Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis are starting to get a reputation out there. Todd already had one. Miguel's starting to get a reputation for building defensive ends. I think the OU D-line the D-line group this fall could also help in closing some of those recruiting battles. So we'll see what goes on, but I thought 6 new names at defensive end and defensive tackle was pretty noteworthy. Okay, so here's the upcoming schedule in terms of high school recruiting. So for 2025, February signing day, I believe, is still on. I've not heard anything saying it's not. There are 0 signs that OU is going to sign anybody in February. The only guy could be, I don't have a name for you guys really. I'd like to see a couple of high school guys been brought in, but with the numbers and the portal activity, maybe OU's just deciding it's just not worth it. They will, however, use the final 2 weekends of this recruiting period to host junior days. We've seen players talking about visiting on January 25th and also February 1st. So expect me to be talking about names, listing names, and talking about who's going to show up, who did show up in podcast episodes coming up. Also, we just saw a 2027 offensive tackle from Texas post that OU has invited him to their Future Freaks event, which they've been hosting. They hosted one last year, and they may have hosted one the year before. So it's on March 8th. So OU will be hosting an event for 2027 and 2028 kids, and maybe some 2029 kids. So expect those names to start building up. We'll probably be talking about it before and again after on podcast episodes coming up in the future. So as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about high school recruiting getting going again. It was tough talking about the high school. It was tough doing the pod at the end of last year and in November when OU just didn't really have any. It was Caleb Burns, and that was it. There were I was basically just tracking whether any decommits would occur, and that's not the most interesting podcast. So I'm hoping this spring and summer we'll have more interesting content for you with all the names visiting OU, and with OU, OU's at 3 commits right now. Jaden O'Neal, the quarterback from California, Ryder Mix from Frisco Lone Star, and now Will Conroy from Ohio, but at IMG. So keep an eye out for that. I think we'll see some more commits as the spring rolls around, I think. I know OU obviously has made hay with summer official visit weekends. So we'll see if that strategy continues and how OU does. But we're back in the saddle with high school recruiting for you guys in high school recruiting news. So thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your platform of choice. If you prefer the YouTube version, please subscribe to the Sooners 360 YouTube channel. And finally, again, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more recruiting content. The Patreon site keeps this podcast free and allows me to keep doing it. So if you like this podcast, please give the Patreon site a try. There's a free trial that you can see if it's worth your time. But thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.